I was on Long Island in Holiday Express. We had landed quite late the night before, flying from Salt Lake to New York City. And Long Island is right next, or right across the river from Manhattan. And we were getting up and ready to do some business. So that's where I was when 9/11 happened. So we got up. There was four of us in a room. We were on quite a tight budget, and we got up and were rotating through the showers. And one of us turned on the television set to just find out what was happening in the world and get a little bit of background noise. And believe it or not, it was the Weather Channel. And I don't know what happened, but they kind of dropped this from the scenario. There was a major storm just off the coast of Manhattan. It was a heavy duty tropical storm. It was almost a hurricane. And once it all happened, that information went away. You can't find it anymore. But we were watching the Weather Channel about, will it really bother the weather in Manhattan? And even the Weather Channel broke through when the first plane hit. And so we changed the channel to a little bit better one. And was freaked out just like all the rest of the world was. So that's how I found out, is I was watching television in a hotel room on Long Island. So once the second plane hit, they evacuated the hotel. They made us all go outside, which was completely stupid. But fear took over, and so we ran outside, and so it was several miles away, but we saw both the Twin Towers with the smoke going up. And it wasn't 45 minutes. They had us all come back in, and we all gathered around the TV. The bar was open too, and we just sat and kind of couldn't believe what was happening and watched the footage. It was crazy. It was just crazy to be there for that. So once the towers collapsed, the one tower with the big antenna on it, so there's the two towers, and there was one that had all broadcasts for most of the stations, plus all cell phones in the greater Manhattan area. Once that collapsed, our cell phones didn't work anymore, or very sparingly. So we ran back outside. We actually saw with our own eyes the second tower collapse, and we were stuck there for 2 days because the Port Authority shut down all bridges and all trains and everything. Manhattan was by itself, and because the way Long Island works, everything kind of had to go through New York to get into Long Island, so we were pretty trapped too. We sat and watched TV, what channels were left on. So NBC was gone. There was no NBC. ABC was spotty at best, and the only one that we could watch was CBS, and then one of the cable channels. I don't remember which. I think it was, nobody really knew where our meeting was. It was supposed to be pretty close to the World Trade Center, so that didn't happen. And we all went to bed. The next day, they started to open up the trains, the subways, so that the firemen could get in to start looking for bodies. And we were so bored, all all four of us got on the subway and went in with, because nobody ID'd you. We had nice clothes on. They all thought we were either officers or firemen. And we went into Manhattan on the train, on the subway, and got off kind of a block too early. And we walked right down Fifth Avenue, and there was nobody there. It was the most interesting, fascinating, weird thing in my entire life. We walked right down that busy place, and there was nobody on the streets. You couldn't see anybody anywhere around. Everybody kind of got moved down away from the financial district, And so we kind of got scared and started walking north towards Central Park. And there's a place called Washington Square that's not too far away from the Twin Towers. But that's where, if you were alive, you would have saw it, all the posters of pictures of missing people were stuck to great big particle board there in Washington. And they gave all that attention. But what the cameras didn't show was on the other side, if you turned around and you looked at the Washington Monument in Washington Square, they all put little tokens and flowers, and come to find out, and I didn't know this until much a day or two later, the police tried to push him back a little bit further, and the people of New York said, no, if this is where Washington made his stand, this is where we're going to make a stand, and they wouldn't go back any further. And from that point on, New York was somewhat, I mean, it was subdued and there wasn't much going on, but it was at least normal. Anything from that point forward was just no man's land. We had that experience, and we got back on the train about midday after we had a bagel or something. It was more than midday. It was probably about 3 o'clock. We went back to the hotel on Long Island and went to bed, and we just got stir crazy. We kind of had a meeting at one of the guys' house out on Long Island that we were going to meet with, and kind of talked about what we were going to do business. It was a market maker that was going to take the company public, or was looking into taking us public, and it went fairly well, but nobody was interested in doing business. All we did is talked about what might have happened and who it was. And there was a lot of frustrations about the stories that were being told. And some of the hardest things were there was 20 to 50 people that were in the towers that bailed out. We talked a little bit about that and how horrifying that was. And wrapped our business up there and started making plans to get home. Now everything was shut down. It was the quietest you'd ever seen. Airspace was done. Nobody flew for a bunch of days. And about the fourth day, we started hearing that some of the other airports around the nation was opening up, but for sure not New York. LaGuardia and JFK, and pretty much anything around, even up into Boston, there was just no way. So we started making calls because we were going to go find an airport and fly home that was open. And there was no rental cars to be had. And so we called U-Haul, and the four of us were going to rent a U-Haul. And one of our partners had traveled quite a bit and had some pretty good status with one of the rental car places, and they were able to get him a compact car. And we started making our way to Cincinnati to fly home. Probably 3 things changed my life about being there. One was just the experience of being there and seeing it. The second was that Washington Square. I didn't know the history of it until I got home, but literally that's where Washington took on the British and stopped them from coming into the United States. And then when we got the rent-a-car, we went into Manhattan, picked it up. It was a compact, or it was a small car for 3 men or 4 men. Anyway, we got off. One of the bridges were open, and we got off and got on the New Jersey Turnpike, and which is kind of like I-50 or 215 in Salt Lake. It wraps around a big chunk of New York and New Jersey. Anyway, it's called the Turnpike, and there's a bunch of high-rise apartment buildings, and there were flags and people screaming out the window, and very unified in a way that I've never seen since or before. There was just resolve that something needed to be done, and we're still good. And none of us really got emotional during it, but as we were flying home, we all kind of talked about it. 2 or 3 of us wept like I'm weeping now. It was quite moving. So anyway, we ended up driving into Cincinnati and jumping a Delta flight to fly home. Probably the 3 things that mattered most was the turnpike and seeing that patriotism that was so strong in the nation, the Washington Square thing, and then last but not least, just the mystery around the whole thing. They fell, and it fell hard. And Building 7 fell, and it didn't get hit. And I don't know a thing about that. I don't know a thing about why the storm wasn't talked about. But I've always been very, very curious why I was there and why it even happened in the first place. I just hope that we as a nation, actually we as a world, could kind of start having a little bit of that unity that I felt on the New Jersey Turnpike. Thanks.